Just like that, it's intro to Wednesday night.
You know what? I gotta say, there was a time where it didn't feel like Wednesday Night Tech Talk until I heard the cars going down the drag strip, whatever. But now that right there, that's kind of like that little groove to get you into the mood. I like that, man. Dude, good job on that video, man. That was awesome.
Oh, yeah, thanks. The intro, I tried to make it like, how like The Incredibles,
Oh
like
yeah,
that's
oh
what I
yeah,
was shooting for, was that kind of, I don't know, that genre, I guess. But
yeah.
worked out pretty good. And I like having the greasy, dirty mechanic in there, that is throwing the wizardry at you. So.
All right, man. Go on through and greet these people.
All right. Well, we'll kick it off. Let me see here, because remember, I don't have full access to this thing, but we got
Yeah.
LP94 Lars, Danny Boyd is in the house, Miss Catchy, KS Skyhawk here with beers, Bobby Frizzell. I'll be in and out for the first few minutes playing with a new hot rod, which he did get a new hot rod.
Yes.
Pretty interesting piece. Time capsule, if you will.
Super time capsule.
Junkyard D is here. Slant Daily Garage, what's up, suckers? Buff Del Campo, Blue Grit Garage, 6th Street Garage, Mohawk 62, Matthew, Buff Del Campo, Old Cars and AC, every nut, bolt, fitting, hose, everything needs attention. Fab Race Mod Repeat, hello from Total Obscurity Motorsports Lair, Buick Smith, Clayton's Toolbox, Mexican Spec, Levi's Backyard Performance, Hey Gang, and Paul Pihui. So he's saying, good evening, everyone. And then Buick Smith hits me. Yeah, he hits me with there's a Buick 300 used the timing chain tensioners like the 225 Odd Fire. Not that I know of. When you threw that question up there, I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about, and I've never taken apart a 225 before. The 231 does not use them, and the Buick 300 does not have them, as far as I know. So, and I've never seen them in one of the Buick V8s, and I think it has something to do probably with the Odd Fire setup so that the chain doesn't slack as the engine wobbles.
Yeah. In fact, that was when I was doing a lot of cams for TA Performance. I had to take that into consideration for like how I was making the profiles, because if they're too advanced or too aggressive and ramping in, they'll actually slack back and forth, and it actually will break the chain if they're too.
That's probably what the chain tensioner is for.
Yeah, it'll break it.
That's the only thing I can think of, because they do shake. I mean, the 225 Odd Fires, before they had the even fire cranks, they shook. And that's why I was kind of surprised actually Buick used those, because, I mean, let's think about it. It was the upper end echelon of the General Motors products, right? It'd be like your Chrysler or your Dodge level. And noise, vibration, and harshness was a big thing. I mean, they had nylon coated timing chain gears in them so that they didn't make any timing chain noise. Those were the kind of things that was on the V8s. And then when we went to the V6, which is shaking back and forth, it just kind of surprised me that they even used it. But, oh, well, whatever. Now we are here today with the 3800 was probably the longest run V6 ever. It probably will be a record amongst all of them, to be honest with you, just because it's 61.
A little mention right here. Levi is, I'm back here with a reek of E85. I didn't know he was running E85 in that thing. Did you know that? Or
no, I didn't know that, but I assumed, I mean, that car is kind of like your, I don't know. It would be like today's cookie cutter with the new thing, the 5.3 with the turbo, with the turbo 400 or Power Glide, and I mean he's done a good job with it. It's just I figured since whatever everybody else is doing, that's probably what he's doing.
Yeah,
but it would make sense. He would have to run some kind of, as much boost as that thing was running. It'd have to run some kind of fuel to support it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Danny Boyd, here you go, man. Go for this one.
Danny Boyd says, first tech question: either of you two gone into a brake combo valve? Oh man, if he's talking proportioning valves, specifically the metering part for the fronts, where you have to pull open the valve to bleed the fronts. Mine don't stay in. I am not too familiar with the combo valve. I'm not sure if that's the proportioning valve or not. I did have a big problem with my Suburban where the valve would actually move forward and backwards, and that's generally what sets off your light on your dash, your brake lights, when there's a unequalized pressure in one of the chambers. And they make a centering tool to hold that valve in the center, and then you can bleed or adjust or whatever you need to do. But I've never successfully and put one back together like successfully, right? I've taken them apart, and it was because like I narrowed it down to everything. Like I changed wheel cylinders, I changed master cylinder, and for some reason I can't get it to bleed, and I pull that apart, and I'll generally find a bunch of rust in there. But usually when I pull them apart, I can't get them back together right. They never seem to work right. They either leak or it won't proportion at all. And so, how about you?
I've actually never messed with the combo valve ever. Basically, proportioning valves about it. If that's the same thing, and I try to get rid of them personally. Everything on mine is going to be either factory or race car. When it goes race car, it's an adjustable.
Yeah, I do the same thing because they're so much easier.
Yeah, and I usually adjust it to track conditions too. Like if I at Holly Springs, I'll give it a little bit more biased on the rear because you're going uphill. So because now you're slamming the front end to the ground, this will set it down instead of diving it, you know? So I adjust it just to the track, you know? Now on this one here, Ron's asking 68 340 factory heads, how much material can you remove from the valve seats during a valve job before you hit the soft cast iron? I have that written down up in there. I don't have that in here anymore.
Dude, that's a lot of material. Generally, those things are at least normally I would have to say 3/16 to a quarter inch thick.
They're really big, and I don't know, but 68. Man, weren't some of those things, they weren't hardened seats to begin with. I think that was still that those weren't hardened seats anyways.
Right. So, well, I guess the only hardened face of it would be where it's machine worked.
Where it's machine worked.
Yeah, where like essentially after you have your valve open and close so many times, it actually beats that seat into submission and forges that seat right in that area, right? But the lead was there in 68 to lubricate the seat so that it actually was more pliable.
Yeah, and to cushion the blow too. It was actually as a cushion, you know.
But I would have to assume if you're talking about just getting through the hardened finish of the seat, I bet it's not very far. I bet it's probably only 10,000ths.
Yeah,
You know,
it's not
it might be less than that.
Yeah, I don't know that, Ron, unfortunately. I will look after this. I'll look at my book if I can find it. I've got a few of them up there that might have that information in it because one thing I always do on these, in all my Slant Sixes, I have those things pressed out. In fact, the Beaver still has the factory seats in it, and I don't put lead in it. It is what it is because I don't RPM the thing, and the springs are over 50. They're probably 60 years old now or something, and so they're probably pretty weak. And I don't really RPM the thing, so I really don't care about it much anymore. When it goes bad, I fix it. Who cares? Levi's saying that the popular thing is methanol, and I'm far too poor just for that cheap fuels, but the fuel system is not. I fully understand that.
Oh yeah, that's because the alcohol just eats the fuel system alive.
Yeah.
E85 is not much better. When I was doing research on E85 a couple of years ago, Shane and I have actually talked about this recently. The magic number for E85, if you were to take it like percentage wise, where does it become beneficial? It's like, I want to say it was like 70%. I think was the number, 72% maybe.
Was
where
it
the magic
40?
started.
No, was it 40 or 50?
I might have that backwards. Then.
Yeah, I think it was 40 or 50.
Fairly low.
Yeah,
it's
really
surprisingly low, actually.
I think you remember. I think you told me the number because we saw it on a video, and it was magically about the same number as nitromethane, where nitromethane actually becomes like volatile,
start making a difference. That's generally around 47 to 50%.
Exactly. And nitro, when we're running the K series, or actually the B series, 40 is when I went, whoa, that sounds different. And then 45 is when I was like, okay, it's putting down bigger numbers. And then at 50, it was like, it's like a big leap in power, not just like, okay, that could just be dyno fudging. No, this was like,
and that's where if you were real, since Levi, you're running the E85, you can actually dilute that with some gasoline, just regular. I don't know if in your area, but here where I live at, you can buy non-ethanol gas, right? And you can mix up your own stuff. You literally could probably save quite a bit of money because it gives you all the bang for the buck at a much lower cost. And then I think the gasoline is a lot more friendly when it has a higher content of gasoline. It's a lot more friendly on your fuel system. So you could probably stretch it out. Let's just say if you started cutting it 50-50, you'd probably be okay. And you would use considerably less fuel going down the track as well. And as well as it wouldn't be so harmful on your fuel system. But I
Yeah.
I like the effects of E85. It's a really neat concept of race gas at the pump. But man, I tell you what, the weight for it, like I guess the downside is your fuel system literally has to be made out of titanium, right? Like it's got to be bulletproof fuel system, and you can't have much aluminum in there without it being anodized at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. Uh, Brian's asking a question right here. He goes, would you, and he says, recommend those adjustable valves for street use? I did for the longest time in the Cookie Monster. I put an adjustable on it, and I just backed it down to where, because I was running bigs and littles. So since I had bigs on the rear, I would adjust more bias to the rear when I was driving around, so it would keep it from skidding the front tires. Because I've skidded them before and flat spotted and blew a tire by it skidding about this far before. So
Well,
just
like I said last week, adjustable proportioning valves actually work. Um, they work magic. Okay, when you have a mixed match brake system that was either never intended for use from the factory the way it is. Like,
yeah.
let's say the big one used to be, okay, if you were running stock at super stock way back in the freaking 70s and 80s, guys would have, like, say, their A body car. Okay, so you got a Skylark or Chevelle out there, and to hold it on the line, they would change the rear wheel cylinders out for the regular Skylark to the A body station wagon. Okay, and the A body station wagon had a bigger piston. Well, the problem with the bigger piston is you generally have to feed it more fluid to get the same thing that happens, right?
Sorry.
So what you would do is you step up to a proportioning valve from, like, say, a B body car. Well, that B body car, the proportioning is completely different and wrong. So the way to fix that would be the adjustable proportioning valve, because you can bias the brakes to work exactly with your combination.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a bunch of mixed match parts, like, the master cylinder puts out too much fluid for the front, but not enough for the rear. You can fix a lot of that with the adjustable proportioning valve, and that's
Yeah.
what I like about those things. They really came out of the hot rod world, because I mean, like, the guys with the street rods and stuff, that's where they came out of. But they work magic on race cars and street machines with the mixed match brake combos.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think they're amazing, and that way you can adjust it to your braking situation in your car and how your weight is, and you can even change it. Say, in the rain, you want to put a little bit more in the front to get a little better bite. Well, fine, there you can. So, yeah,
Yep.
I like them.
Or like Shane was saying, when you go to bigs and littles and you put the real skinny small ones on the front and there's a lot less surface area, it starts locking up the tires. So what you do is you bias it more toward the back.
Yeah. Ron saying, so a quick spin with the seat stone and call it good. Yes. And then just after the seat stone, call it good. Then I would just do like a medium and then a light and then a fine lapping compound. Look for the where it's touching and call it good, man. In a driver, that's totally fine. Race car, obviously, you want to get a little bit more advanced with it. But if it's a driver, a lot of my Slant 6 cars, I literally do a drill press, what I call them a drill press valve job, and they work. They work just fine.
That's how I do them at home usually. I don't even own the stones. I have had stones in the past, and I found I actually did better with lapping compound.
I know.
Most of the time, yeah.
I got that Goodson. You remember the Goodson? They have the 3 stones for the 3-angle valve job. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have that. And
Yeah, you just wait and you got the centering chuck and then
yes.
and the spring, and you just put it on a drill and freaking hammer it a couple times and you're ready to rock and roll. But I've always had better success. Okay. Yeah. I do things like, I don't know, like hackery, I guess. I don't know, you would call it.
It's not wizardry, it's hackery. It's totally different.
I don't know. I don't know what you would call it. I mean, it's backyard
getting it done.
Mechanic stuff, the stuff that my dad taught me that they used to do when he was a kid, right? So, like, lapping valves. If I have one, the seat is really bad, I'm the guy that literally would take, 1,000 grit sandpaper or 600 grit sandpaper and put it underneath the valve, hold it tight in place, put an electric drill on the other end, and spin that sucker with the sandpaper in it, right? To smooth it out, using the face of the valve to hold it flush. And I mean, the thing is, you got to remember when you're doing this stuff, you may think, oh my God, that's terrible. Well, the machine isn't much different than that. Okay.
Nope.
You're just taking a stone and hammering it, right? And you're doing the same thing. But remember, when you're done cutting it, you're always checking your margins. So the easy way to do that is you take the valve out and you take a Sharpie mark, or not a Sharpie, but a dry erase marker, put it around the surface of the edge that actually seats the seat of the valve, and you drop it in place and spin it with your fingers. Try not to go more than 360 degrees. You would generally want to go 180, and then you pop the valve out. If it meets the margin and it's smooth all the way through, it's done its job. It's done exactly what you needed it to do.
Yeah. I'm the same way, man, because a lot of my stuff that I keep running, like all the slant sixes I have, if I showed some of the stuff, they would be like, man, that's total hackery. But then you look, that's what people did back in the day. And that's
I know.
it runs. I have a green car outside, the Lizard King. If anyone saw how that valve job was done, the head that's on that car is the engine that Lisa picked up for free on Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, that's what it was. And I did it with a drill, a piece of hose, and then the Napa compounds. I literally did it with that. And then I back cut the valves on the drill press. I literally did that, and it runs beautiful. The car's got almost like 5 or 6% leak down. I mean, it's golden. It's fine. And it's got the umbrella valve guides on it, so it seals.
Well, there used to be a saying that I kind of live and die by. There's certain things that I will do take to the machine shop because it's required precision fit from a machine shop. Okay. But there's a saying that used to come around that said a machinist never met a surface he didn't like, right? Or does like, I guess is the way it goes. And that means if you take anything to the machine shop, they're always going to want to machine it. Okay. And when you're talking old, junkety stuff, like clapped out stuff like I'm doing, dude, there's only so many rebuilds you can get out of those things, and they're not making any more of the stuff. So it's like, man, I'm going to do what I can get away with here, save myself a little bit of cash, but also save it down the road for another rebuild. Like, I hate boring an engine. I hate it. It is like the antithesis of just wasting the engine away.
Right. That means that's one less thing you can do with it from that point.
Yes. And so what I'll do is I tier them. So you get an engine that's got, let's say it's got grooves in the cylinder wall. Okay. Grooves on a leak down test are almost negligible. If it was fresh and had grooves in it and you had a brand new set of rings and nothing seated and you try to do a leak down test, yeah, it's going to leak like pretty bad. Right. But when you fire that thing up, the rings break in, oil gets down in those grooves in the cylinder wall and flashes itself into carbon. Okay. And then you got heat and pressure, everything that you need to make some really hard freaking carbon, because that's the first step to a diamond, right?
And hammering
that groove, yeah. And next thing you know, the leak down is passing really well, and you're using this ragged out, flogged short block that's got cylinder wall gouges in it that you could drop a file through, and it works just fine. Now, I don't go crazy on most of that stuff. It's like if it's really pitted bad, pitting is almost the worst thing you could possibly do to it, because when you pit like that, it's an irregular surface and it will break a ring. Right now, when you have scoring on the cylinder wall, it's not an irregular surface because the ring always has that groove right there. Right. So it doesn't really, there isn't anything to kind of sharply bang the ring and crack it. So I try to get away with as much stuff as possible. I will not build an engine for somebody else that the block is gacked. I'll do that for myself, and it'll go down the road generally just fine for 30 to 50,000 miles without having to do anything to it.
Right. I feel the same way.
And if it's something I don't drive on the regular,
who cares?
It's going to sit in the garage all the time. It's getting just rings and bearings and going back out there. It's got bore taper. Okay. There's actually a taper allowance from the factory. Did you know that?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So
the book. Yeah.
It's there. It's always there.
Yeah.
It's just how bad is it?
So Paul's asking, Dallas and Professor P. I recently installed an electric fan on my Oldsmobile and removed the mechanical fan. My question is, what is the range fan switch should I use with the 180 thermostat? I'm telling you, I like them to circulate before it turns on. So I would say, this is just my opinion on this. I usually have them at either 190 or 195 for a switch. That way, the thermostat's, because obviously it's going to rise really fast, and then when the thermostat opens, it's going to cycle, and then it's going to stabilize. And that's how I have the green car set up. It's on a pulse modulated fan, and it doesn't really come on till about 190, and I've got a 180 thermostat in right now. So I tend to like to have about a 190, 195.
That's exactly how I choose it as well. Is that I generally have a thermostat that opens 10 to 15 degrees below what the temperature of the fan is, because you want the thermostat open before the fan comes on. You want it, right? Like there's no point in cooling cold water, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to do anything,
Yeah.
or very little. But what you want is you want all that heat coming through, because when the fan comes on, it can disperse the heat quickly. And that's kind of how I look at that one. It generally should be 10 to 15 degrees difference, you would think, because you want the thermostat open first. And then the good thing is what will happen is the fan is like, it's got a thermostatic switch, comes on at 195, right? Okay, let's say it comes on at 195. You'll cool all the water down, the thermostat will close, the water in the radiator will remain fairly warm, and the fan will continue to cool it until the heat is actually dispersed off the fan blades, because that's generally how those switches work. It's going through the fins on the fan blade. So that means the water in the radiator itself is so cool that it's less than the thermostatic switch on the fan itself.
Yeah. Here's actually a good one. So Dan's Garage says, I got the nerve to try Shane's trick on freeing up a governor on my 727. Drop it in park at low speed. So basically, it's basically hitting that. Got me on the road in my little red truck. So awesome. His little truck, sorry. So
sweet.
That's awesome. So it does work. It's a little unnerving to be putting it into park, and it's rattling the park paw, but it's literally right on the governor valve. So it will knock it loose, because it's quite a racket. Oh, Nivlac 57s are here. So awesome.
Oh, all right.
Mr. Nelson, Mr. Andrew Nelson. And so you can
Yeah,
go
well,
through
mostly old parts. Ron Ward says methanol equals corrosion switch to kerosene and pulse jet engine. So that's the only way to fix that corrosion issue.
You know what's funny? I built a pulse jet engine in when I was in college. I did it just for fun, and I used reed valves. I used steel reed valves instead of having the U on it. Mine was a long tube, and I put reed valves in the front, so that way the air would come in, but it couldn't go back when it would explode. So it was a reed valve, then it had a combustion chamber, then it had a big long, and then I did the math for like a trumpet to give it like thrust, so as it expand as it went out. It was actually really cool. I don't think it would ever actually really power anything, because I was using just propane, but it was actually really cool.
Oh,
It was
dude,
loud as hell.
That's what the Germans used for their first rockets, really.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they were saying. And yeah, if you could use like a more volatile fuel than like propane, I could see the power in it. So
Okay, so 38 Racing is asking triple crown question: are weight breaks and penalties on the 3,000-pound minimum or the cubic inch numbers? The weight breaks. The weight breaks were specifically based on what your combination was.
yeah, so like if you had a stick shift, you get 200 pounds off, or I think is what it was, or
I think it's 100 pounds, but
yeah,
I don't have the rules pulled up here. I guess I should probably pull them up before I start talking out my ass. But it's based on the combination that you have. You can actually dip down below the 3,000-pound minimum, I believe.
yes.
Right? Didn't we have it down to like 2,700 as the minimum?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do know that once even the weight breaks, though, if you're under 3,000 pounds, you have to run the smaller tire, regardless.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Going through here, see if there's anything. Oh, here's one. Dallas, you would bore a 400 Mopar, big block Mopar, if it had an 18 thousandths taper from top to bottom. I didn't. That thing revved to the moon.
I wouldn't bore it. I don't bore any of them.
Yeah.
I try not to bore any of them as long as they're not pitted. Pitting is like the worst because,
yeah,
like I said, it's an irregular surface. So think of it like a speed bump.
Yeah.
Right. That's how you break a ring.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I rarely do that stuff too, man. I have so many engines here that I rarely rebuild them. I just like to just get them
Well,
running again.
okay, I'll give you guys an example. And Shane has seen it firsthand. He gave me a 350 Buick that they found in a container in Memphis, and it had been there for 30 years in a shipping container. And it was rebuilt like what, 1989?
Yeah, it was in the 80s. Yeah.
It had serious rust on the block because it had been machined and then it just was coated in oil and put in this shipping container. Well, after a while, the oil will break down and leave, and the surface will rust. And that thing was rusted, and it was rusted at the top of 2 cylinders. Okay. One of them, the piston was all the way up. The other one, the piston was only about halfway up. And I'm like, I got it to where I could spin the engine over freely. And I disassembled it all to check the bearing clearances and everything. And all I did was, since it was a fresh engine, it had never ran, I just rehoned that 1 cylinder, threw back in, right? But it did have like this black stain from the rust. And the black stain is really oxidation at the porous level of the block.
Yeah.
I figured, hey, it's going to work just fine. And you know what? It ran just fine. It didn't even smoke or anything.
That's awesome.
But that's the kind of stuff that I do. I mean, I guess it's considered hackery. If it's a full blown race piece coming out of Steve Morris, I'm sure Steve Morris wouldn't do stuff like I do. But if it was, like I said, if it was my own stuff, you can't be worried about this. Like, all right. What I learned in like the 80s from the old school guys, maybe the early 90s, was look how bad an engine is when you take them apart. And if was it running when it drove into the shop? Okay. If you take it apart and it was running, and you'll go in there and you'll find, like I had an engine I took out of a guy's car just like a year and a half ago, 300 Buick. It was running engine. It smoked a little bit, but it was running. And I brought it home. I tore it down. It had 3 broken pistons in it, right? Stuff will run almost flawlessly with some serious damage because of just the architecture and I guess it would be the old Cro-Magnon caveman knuckle dragon shit from the 60s. It was just really loosey-goosey, and the tolerances weren't all that tight, and nothing was perfect. And you can get away with a lot more, you know? And if you get it up to 99.4%, it's going to run for a long time. Especially, you got to look at it. What is the purpose of the engine? If you're just going to drive it once a weekend every couple of months, man, I tell you what, go for the 30,000 mile rebuild. That's like, just shoot for 30,000 miles. And speaking of that, I watched a video on YouTube just 2 days ago. Okay. It was the super trick that they all kind of mentioned it, but it literally was this guy was rebuilding a Bug-Eye Sprite. He found a Bug-Eye Sprite somewhere, and he got like a used rebuilt short block that had been in a car for like 20,000 miles, and they didn't like it, and they put something else in it, like a Mazda Miata engine or something in the Bug-Eyed Sprite. Well, his Sprite, he needed an engine, so he bought this used one, and he started it up, and it was smoking. And he literally got the can of Bonamie out and revved that sucker up and dumped the Bonamie down it, right? And lo and behold, it seated the rings. It reseated the rings. And I had never seen it really happen before, but I've heard stories of it.
Me too. Here's actually this is the quote of the evening right here. Mr. Wilburn saying the important part is adjusting the valves. Do it right, even if it takes 3 years.
Yeah, that's the fastest way to bleed off compression is have the valve hung open.
Right. Good one, John. That's a good one right there. Yeah, I like that one. So this is back for you. It says Dallas is a 358, so 3312, just on the cubic inch with a Q-jet, 4-speed, and a distributor would have what for a minimum weight?
Oh, I need to pull up the rules for this.
He's going to pull up the rules because we wrote them all down, and I think didn't we post them on the No Name Nationals?
We did it, and it is posted, but I'm not. To be honest with you, this is probably a good thing because I haven't looked at those in a while, and I probably need to refresh myself. Where do I have those at?
Yeah. And while he's doing that,
second here, and I'll pull those rules up, and see what we can find here.
We're getting down to John. I haven't watched one of his. We're down to like a few weeks, right? What are we under 30 days?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we are. Well, I don't know if
No.
we're under 30 days,
Yeah.
but we're getting down there. The numbers are getting low.
Yeah, they're getting low. Oh yeah, that's right. Because
Man, I couldn't
it's
find some
only
rules.
the
Where did
6th.
I put some damn rules at? Oh, duh, not Wednesday night tech talk. Okay.
I got a calculator here too, so we'll do that. But I think doing that weight, I think the Q-Jet wasn't the Q-Jet 200 pounds.
I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to talk out of my ass.
Yeah.
Right? Because the people will hold you to this.
Yeah.
If you're going to tell them something. And, if they're building it to the combination, it's worthwhile to make sure that.
To get it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember this was a popular one that me and you were talking about, was this exact setup right here. This is what we were talking about.
Oh, he's doing the right thing. He's doing his homework. He's setting it all up right, and he's asking questions, and he's going to make it work. I cannot find that document to save my life. Let's see here. It's got to be in here somewhere.
Well, while you're looking for that, we'll come back to that.
Let's see here.
I like what Blue Grit says here. Exactly, Dallas. Hone it, slap it back together. I did the same on my 66 Mustang back in 92 and ran it in the last year's No Name Nationals. Dude, I'm with you on that one. That engine that's in the Lizard King, the actual bottom end is the original one that I rebuilt, the bottom end one. It's been in and out a few times, but that's the original one I built back in. It's been over almost 10 years. That I put almost 60,000 miles on that car, or maybe 70,000, and it runs just fine. It's got great leak down, and I basically just did a backyard home job.
Can you see that down the bottom, Shane? You're gonna have to select it. This is
right
the
here?
rule
Yep.
for Triple Crown.
Okay. Add to stage.
Pull it up.
Yeah, I'm here, and I'm trying. Before, nope, it's saying oh, I have to remove this other one here. Remove. Okay. Here. Add to stage. Here we go.
Okay, so here is the rules for the Triple Crown. Let's see. So what was his combination, I guess?
Right here. It is a 358.
Right?
Yep.
And it's okay. Man, holy cow. So my brain is not working here. Okay, 9 pounds or greater per cubic inch, right? So 358 times 9 equals 3222 is what he would have to weigh without weight breaks, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any clutch assisted vehicle is 100 pounds less weight break. So that takes 3122, right?
I'm doing it for you. I got it right here.
Okay. Let's see. I do know that when we had the carburetors on here, okay, single 4150 carb is 100 pounds off, but he's got a single spread bore, which is 200 pounds off.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I thought the Q-Jet was.
Okay. So he should be 29 or 2922. Is that right?
Yes, but here's the thing is you do not want to get below 3,000 pounds because then you have to run the 26 8.5 tire.
But that's what he's going to have to run, or he's going to have to add weight back in.
Or he's going to have to add weight back in. So the goal is to get down to close to the 3,000 pound, because that's why we called the Triple Crown the 333, but 300 cubic inch, 3,000 pounds type of deal. So yeah, that's ideally what you want to do. If you want to go down below that, then the goal would be to get as low as possible. What was the minimum on that? Was it 2,700? I think is what the minimum weight we had.
I think we determined it was going to be 2,700 because if it was maximum weight breaks on the lightest car,
yes.
Right?
Yep.
So that it was the smallest cubic inch you could run, and maximum weight breaks.
Yeah.
So that was 300 cubic inch, and then you have all the maximum weight breaks, which is 300 pounds. right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're down at 2,700 pounds.
Yeah.
So I think that's how that worked. But so it was 29.22. As close as you are to, it's 29.22 with you in it, right?
Yeah.
That's the way
End of the
that
track,
thing works.
end of the race. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would figure out some way to add 80 pounds so you can run that bigger slick, but be right at the 3,000 pound minimum.
I'd be over it. But give yourself a little grace because remember, it's weighed after the race. And we're going to weigh these cars beforehand. So we're going to know who's close or whatnot. But that's with you in the car after the race. We'll weigh them.
Oh, so we're falling way behind. What's funny is Andrew Nelson says that stuff is called grassroots, like the hackery. You know?
Yeah, right. Oh no, I started looking through. I was going through to see if there was anything. And Paul's asking a question here too, kind of. Do you use cast rings when you slap it together after honing?
That's what I do. I use Hastings cast rings because, like, generally they seat.
They seat and
there's
they
a
work.
reason why the old guys just live and die by those things.
I'm telling you, I love Hastings. That every single one of my Slant Sixes has got Hastings in it because they work. They seat. Sometimes they take a little while, but they do seat and they do run and they work great. Go ahead. You get this one.
Well, I'm just laughing here because Lout Burn says Dallas is making diamonds. So I'm not. Okay. Let's see. Andrew, I have a couple friends like that. This is just a conversation.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
This is the one I meant to hit. So he's thanking you for it.
Oh, yeah. Piece of cake.
Yeah, Junker Design. I thought you could waive the weight breaks if you elected to avoid the 3,000 barrier. Yeah, you can avoid. You can waive them. If you get the weight breaks and you're down to 2,700 pounds, but you don't want to run that small tire, then you can get the weight up to 3,000 pounds. That's why we did that. So that way you could be down to 29, 22, but then you can put the weight where you want to put the weight. Did you want to put the weight in the back, put it in the front, however you want to do it? You can arrange the weight wherever you want, as long as the weight's over 3,000 pounds.
I'm smiling because, okay, this is the stuff that makes racing fun. When you're class racing, this is what makes it fun. Yes. When I was like a teenager, okay, the hottest thing going was a fast streetcar America shootout. And there was a guy in there named Chuck Samuel. He was running an El Camino, which at the time was a terrible body style and combination to run. Okay, no one ran that because why? The El Camino was a truck in the back. It's a party in the rear and all business up front, right? It's your mullet car. When it has no weight in the rear, it makes them light. And then those A bodies and even the G body El Caminos were wheel hop happy because they were so light in the rear, and then that triangulated four-link made them freaking bounce the rear ends.
It'd be walking almost.
Chuck Samuel was famous because the tailgate on those things is just like a regular truck tailgate where it's hollow in the center. It's actually a station wagon tailgate that's intended to have a rear window glass and a regulator in it. He filled the whole thing with lead, like molten lead, and poured in that tailgate. And you'd have like a 200-pound tailgate. But what he would do is when you pull up to the track, he would let the tailgate down, and all that weight worked as a cantilever against the rear suspension, right? And it turned out to be one of the best combinations and body styles to use after the fact because of that. And it was just thinking outside the box that got him to that point.
So Michael's asking, does driver weight figure in? Some drivers are 150 pounds, other drivers, yes. It's with you in the car down the track weight. So these are not remote control cars. So this is you in the car. That's like after you run, you come over, and if you win and there's hey, we want to weigh this car, then you get weighed, you in the car with the fuel that's in it. So you got to weigh higher than that after you go down the track. So that's the idea of it.
Yeah. And the big thing is what you want to do is you want to calculate all this generally based on you being in the seat, and you don't want your weight to be maximum weight, like your fuel tank completely full. What you want to do is you probably want to come up to your, like in this instance, 38 POS. He would probably want to weigh it with an almost empty fuel system and come up to that weight. And that way, anytime it has fuel in it, he's going to make weight.
Exactly.
right?
Yep. Exactly. And Ron's saying, just thinking out loud, with a tiny engine and weight and a small tire will be an advantage. Well, here's
Yes.
the thing: it's a 26 diameter, so it's rollout. It's rollout weight on traction. Just like if you ever did any off roading, people always go, "I want wide tires." Well, actually, the taller the tire, the better, because it's actually the traction this way is greater than the traction widthwise, because it gets a better rollout on that. That's the idea of it. Now, people can haul ass with 26-inch slicks now. In fact, they've got a whole class now with 26-inch 8.5 tires, and I
What's the
just
whole
see
new class?
huh?
What's the whole new class? Which one's that? Because that
Yeah,
is a fun class.
yeah,
I
it's
used
a
to run
whole
it when it
new
was eight and
no
a half
prep.
inch outlaw.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, it's a whole new no prep. So instead of a 28, anything on 28s or whatever, they got a whole thing now, which is 26-inch tires, where it's all the no prep racing on 26 tires. And they have
oh,
an outlaw class now on 26 tires. And um, that guy he's like a famous street racer. I forget his name, but he went to 26 inch tires, and he set a few records on it. So he's doing pretty good. Oh, and here, and for instance, look, Andrew said Calvin won 6 summer freaks with a 26 slick, and he went 874 on 159. So yeah,
yeah. Well, those things will get down. I'm telling you, the sketchiest ride I ever had was when I don't know if I ever, when I first got to Verona out there in California and we met up like for the first time. I think before I met you, I was testing out there on, did you ever see when I had the police car wheels on it?
yeah, I did, I saw that.
And I had the 26 by 8s in the back.
Yeah,
And dude, that was the sketchiest, most butt puckerness ride I ever had because it was literally like I had it set up to run that big 30-inch tall tire, 9 inches wide. And I went to that 26 by 8. And I mean, that thing, it was wheels up with the back end just all over the place. And I was scared to death of it. And what was happening was like it would knock the tires off at the hit, but then as it got moving, it would pick up speed, right? Um, but when you put it in like second gear, it was when it would come up on the cam and it would start dancing. It
yeah.
would
When the
literally just
power,
start dancing around.
when the torque was on there, was hitting with the
Yeah.
torque.
Oh man, and it was scary as crap.
I'm glad that Andrew's here, because I was actually going to send a text to Andrew and Calvin. I'm not going to say it out loud, but did you guys get your present? Just want to see if you guys got the present that I sent you. Just say yes or no. I was actually going to text you today, but I got busy and I forgot to text, and so just want to see if just yes or no. Here it goes. Dallas Shane, could you post up a link to the Triple Crown rules? They're at the No Name Nationals.
It is on the No Name Nationals webpage.
Yeah. Where are you
The
going?
same place you register.
Yep, same place you register. Exactly. I'll see if I can find. Okay, so Andrew says no. Okay, I will look into that, and I will, because I remember it was supposed to go out. I just didn't know exactly when you're going to receive it or not. So I will check into tracking number. So I will let you know tomorrow then. Perfect. Dizzy saying that the Vagrant's got 26 Nitto 55s on it. That's awesome. Oh man,
Let's
that's
see.
awesome.
I love that 26 by 8. It's like getting things done on something you're not supposed to get it done on. When I was a youngster, those slicks were meant for essentially street cars.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the more you use them slick, the more street you were. But
Mr. Wilburn. So here, Mr. Wilburn posted them right here, so you can click right there, and there are the rules right there. I know that Mr. Wilburn could get it down to the actual minutes and seconds of when the actual race starts. So I'm not sure what day we're going to run. Are we running the Triple Crown on Saturday or Friday? Do you know?
I have no idea. I haven't
Okay.
seen the run order yet. I haven't talked to John about the run order yet. I didn't even know you were talking to me. I thought you were still talking to John. But yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm assuming it's probably going to be on Saturday, but I can't guarantee that. It would be something. If it was me, what I would do is I'd throw the Triple Crown up with the 28, 10, 5 or the call outs, right?
Yeah.
So like not necessarily the call outs, but like the match races that people have set up.
Yeah.
But I think it all depends on how much time there is and what's the run order that John is kind of projecting here.
Yeah, he's probably still working on that. You know, if you want to know about that, he'll probably talk about that. Go to his channel on Wednesday. Sorry, on Fridays on John Wilburn on 7 Central, and ask him there. Yeah, he'll have that.
So Ron is saying here, okay, so this is the second time this has come up, and he's saying, still thinking out loud, a 28 by 9 slick hooks up super stock cars like John Calvert's Mustang. In the heavier cars, I think the skinnier tire would offer an advantage due to less rolling resistance. The smaller the tire, always the less rolling resistance,
Yes,
always the quicker ET, right?
the smaller width tire.
I'm just talking about the smaller. It doesn't matter if it's width, height, any of it. It's the smaller the tire, the less contact patch you have, the less rolling resistance, the less friction, generally the better ET. Now, there is the point at which it crests because you can't hook it up anymore, right? And
Yes.
it's working negatively against you. That's the one where you try to skate that edge all the time. What I do, like when my T-Bird was run now, well, what air pressures did we run last year? 14, 15 pounds?
I was running almost 14 pounds in mine.
I think I was running 15 pounds in my slicks.
15. I was running 15. Yeah, 15 pounds.
In the 30 by 9s, I've had them upwards of 17 pounds because you got so much rollout forward traction patch.
Yeah.
That 2 extra pounds would equate to generally about like 2 to 3 miles an hour on the big end.
Yeah, and that's why I've always liked the taller, thinner tires personally. That's why when I couldn't figure out why my car had the 458 gears in it, I remembered why. It's because I went to that 29 diameter by 9-inch tire when I was racing in the Heritage Series, because it gave me such a great rollout and consistent traction, and I could run the air pressure really high, which would give me a higher mile an hour. Where my class, I couldn't go at that time. You couldn't go faster than 10.00, and my car was 10.04. So I was basically going up and then being able to dump. So I was able to, get 130 something miles an hour on the other end, and then dump it back and come into them. But yeah.
Well, Andrew Nelson's saying something here. Worst part of running 26s is letting off the throttle at over 150 miles an hour. Car unwraps hard and it's scary.
Yes.
You have to drive into the chute. The other, like, I never really thought about this. Generally, when you're a high horsepower turbocharged car and you're laying tracks, like that's generally past the 60-foot mark. Like if you ever watch Dylan Levi's Laguna get down, it's not what you would call a rocket ship off the line, but man, is it freight train at 60 foot and up, right? When you're running those real small slicks like that, I imagine that there is a lot of sidewall wrinklage on those things because there isn't much sidewall at all. So it's going to give 2 or 3 inches trying to apply all that power while gripping the track. And he's probably right. I mean, it's got to essentially come forward. It's going to spring the car forward once you unpower them, as the sidewall, becomes normal again. I don't know. Maybe you would think it'd be worse on a taller slick, but I never
you
really
have more air pressure. You can put more air pressure in it, so it actually holds it better.
Oh yeah, you're right. So since it has a smaller sidewall, and because the pressure is lower, generally it's going to wrap even more.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I've never really thought of it like that, and I've never had something that freight trains like that. Like.
Well, would your car run in the quarter? Would your mile an hour in the quarter?
Well, I never ran those 26 by 8s in the quarter. I ran them at Verona, which was 1/8 mile.
Oh right? No, but would your car normally run in the quarter mile?
Well, before I had it down to 975 at 146. Right now,
so that's a good mile an hour.
Well, it's got a 390 gear in it, right? Mm-hmm. So the car doesn't weigh crap. That's where it really makes the steam, is at the top end. One, it's aerodynamic, so it was designed to go fast, right? And then the other thing is, like, it doesn't weigh crap. So when the motor's making maximum horsepower in high gear, it will freight train at the top, but not like a turbo car, or nitrous car. They just come on so hard at the top end. But my car does pretty good in mile an hour wise. I was actually kind of worried because I was running it in the 990, the super gas class, and they were like, "Hey, man, and it was an NHRA track, right, in Fontana. Man, you go over 150 miles an hour, we're gonna have to kick you out of here." Like, really, if I run 150.1, you're going to throw me out. Like, come on.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
was this, you're only talking 4 miles an hour. So, I mean, but the thing is with a naturally aspirated car, you're generally not that far off. You can't really gain 4 mile an hour just by doing some wizardry trickery in the pits.
Yeah. So John put this up there. This was at 7:46, so I'll correct it for you. So 43 days, 3 hours, and 9 minutes from right now. Actually, it just changed, so 8 minutes. So 43 days, 3 hours, and 8 minutes until the No Name National. So get your Triple Crown car ready, because I'm gonna tell you, this is gonna be a great class. If we get some cars there, it's gonna be awesome, because it's gonna be really, really close racing, and it's gonna be cool to see what people pull out. I'm going to be excited about this. Oh yeah. So here's another one too. Andrew Shout recommends that anyways, unless your parachute is mounted perfectly, there's a fair chance that it lifts the rear end up. Yes. In fact, I have a mount for the Cookie Monster, and I have to fix it because I was never really running that fast like I am now, and it's not right. And it's actually pulling the car slightly up. That's why I took it off right now. I would rather just rely on the brakes right now. I mean, I like the safety of a chute, but I'm not really, I'm 130. I'm about 129, 130 right now in the 8th mile, which is fast, but it's not terribly fast. What you can pretty much stop at most tracks with that.
Ron Ward saying he's seen stock lunar cars run 8s in the quarter on 9-inch tires on multiple occasions. 10.5-inch tires just seem too big. When I first started doing the AHRA, I created a class called GT class that was a throwback to the first 2 years of pro stock when it was heads up super stock in the AHRA. I don't know if everybody knows that. And the AHRA is the first ones to create the super stock or the pro stock class. It was called heads up super stock. And the first 2-3 years of that class were just like gloves off, badass. And what they had to use was essentially a stock car. And you had like essentially 9 things that you could change, like fiberglass hood, fiberglass trunk lid. You could run 2 4-barrels instead of a single 4-barrel. It was like a bunch of little things. And that was the first 2 years of pro stock. Well, when I stood up the AHRA, I recreated the GT class, which was a class in AHRA that was essentially like a super stock class, as the new pro stock, because I felt that pro stock had jumped the shark, right? It had gotten so out of hand that you could not put it back into a box.
The genie bag was out of the cage. It was done.
Yeah, and Pandora's box had been opened and spilled on the ground, and someone used it as a dump. So I was just looking at like, okay, well, we'll start all over, and then why don't we create a class? Like, here was the idea, the vision behind it. The idea, Shane and I, we created this class. We kicked this idea around probably, 2, 3, 4 weeks. We noticed that there was a lot of cars like our own that were running at tracks without having a class.
That's right.
And what it was like, imagine this. If you took the first 2 years recipe of pro stock and you applied it to any car made, right? Not just that was the problem with pro stock. It had to be like 4 years old or newer, right? Well, imagine if you had like no age limitation on it. What car could you use? But it had to be factory roof, factory quarter panels, factory wheel wells, factory suspension pickup points. So you could show up with that Bob Glidden looking Pinto, but it better have factory wheel tubs in it. It better have factory suspension pickup points on it. Otherwise, you're not going down the track in GT class. And the whole idea was it was like a more finite version of Triple Crown is really what you're looking at. It was actually broader because it allowed for big weight breaks and weight all the way from 2,700 pounds to 4,400 pounds, I think, because you got to remember, we're allowing any car, right? So you could have a B body Impala in there, right? But it was weight to cubic inch and it was gloves off. And there was actually 3 factors what I wanted to throw in there, and I had never got to the opportunity to throw it in there. And then when I went to run the GT class, literally no one showed up. So it was kind of a disappointment. I wasn't going to put any more time and effort into it. I needed to just cut my losses and move on and find something else that people wanted to run. But, that would have been the class. That would have been your televised sportsman gloves off, badass class.
Yeah, the fun
It really
class.
would have. Yeah. I really like the idea of the B-body Impala getting down with the 302 small block Chevrolet Vega. That's the stuff that I wanted. And it was weight to cubic inch. It was like boxing the way it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's why I like this Triple Crown class, is because you can pretty much, it's weight to cubic inch, right?
Yeah.
There it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the
So,
way racing is supposed to be done. It's not supposed to be based on the car. It's supposed to be
or the
all the
dollars.
factors, weight and cubic inch is supposed to be the same or comparative. And then it's all the driver. That's what the point of racing is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing I really think we've taken out of racing today.
Is the driver. Their foots. Their foots
Yes,
now, basically.
they're literally, if you had a dragster that was pre-programmed and you had a monkey that could steer straight, you could put the monkey in there and you could run it down the track, and the car will literally drive itself.
Yeah.
That's what is ruined, because you're talking about, it's supposed to be driver skill. That's the point of it.
Yeah. So Mean Street's asking, Professor P, did you say something about Caltrax being a disadvantage on higher horsepower cars? If so, what horsepower do you recommend become a disadvantage? Okay, so here's the thing, is that I was talking about my car. Now, my car has a Glide, and I was launching it with nitrous. So it really was coming down to torque, because I was applying so much torque to it, and it was like leaving pretty much in kind of like a first and a half gear. So it's like I've got a 1.8 first gear in the Glide. So it's kind of right in between most cars. And it was literally, I couldn't control, at least with the Calvert shocks. Now, if I had some really good Vikings at the time, or some AFCOs, or, QA1s or whatever, and I was able to really dampen that, I could probably control it. But then there was really not much of adjustment for the instant center. Now I could only had 2 adjustments on it. When I got mine, it was really designed for a car that was like 500 to 600 horsepower, something that weighed right around 3,000 pounds or so, which I'm still in that range for the weight, but my car it's just superseded that when I'm hitting that much nitrous right off the line. Not only is it the torque, but the amount of torque that's going through the converter that's being multiplied. And it literally was just extending the suspension, that I had no more suspension. So I had to control the suspension with the nitrous. So I had them on 9. There was no more adjustment on them. That was it. And then I was just basically ramping in the nitrous. And if you watch some of those videos, you'll see my suspension literally grow as it goes out. And then it's fully extended almost just past the 60-foot mark, which typically is not what you want. You want to get it at least just before the 330 if you can. That's ideal. Not really maximum, but still kind of growing out there if you're still laying down power. I just couldn't control it anymore. So for me, that's what it was.
Never intended for something like that.
No, it wasn't.
Was intended for low horsepower cars, like stock eliminator cars.
Yes.
And what it did is it allowed you to control the spring during essentially a clutch dump or trans brake, where you could bring it up to maximum torque and dump the clutch, or and the suspension would react. But then after the fact of the initial hit, there wasn't much moving around. When you're talking high horsepower cars, that's like the opposite. The suspension starts to really move around when you get them under load, and that's 60 foot out. And that's where Caltrax is meant for the first 60 feet. After that, it starts to become a hindrance. But so Chaos Skyhawk is asking, Buick valves 4.656. If I use LS, if length is different, how do I fix the position of the keeper retainer on LS? LS4 is 11/30 seconds versus 3/8. Okay, so this is something I've actually been chasing for a while, because this is one of my ideas that I really want to try on a set of cylinder heads. The Buick valve stems are 3/8. The LS is not 11/30 seconds. The LS is 8 millimeter. And you will require different guides. Now, since you've created the stem, let's just say all of the length being the same, and you can just swap the valves in, because on the Buick 350 you can put 5.3 valves in it. It's the same, almost exact same valve sizes, and you get that smaller stem. That smaller stem is actually going to create more airflow in the head, just because there's less area taken up inside the runner from that valve stem. Now, if you buy a good set of aftermarket 5.3 valves that are back cut, it's going to get even less, intruding into the valve, into the runner itself. But what I was looking at here is doing just this, but you can put that you can use a stock set of LS valves, and here's what I think you do. The factory valves are not like sodium filled; they're solid, right? Not till you get to what the LS7 that they have sodium filled valves,
Yeah,
and I
on the
think that
exhaust.
on the exhaust only.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so that
it
means
was.
they're hollow generally when they're sodium filled,
Yeah.
and you can't use the sodium filled valves, but the solid valves, the stainless steel solid from the factory generally, you can pop them out of a regular 5.3 in the junkyard. You can recut that groove as long as the valve, and I believe the valve for the LS is longer than the Buick valve, and you just cut it down and then move your groove where you need it. That's what I think it's all it requires. But there is other wizardry you could do in there. Here's that word wizardry, right? But you want your stem height to be the same, but you can move the depth of the valve inside the seat, the whole 9 yards, move some of that stuff around. And if you got to shift it around where the initial keeper is at, you can do that.
Yeah.
There's guys that this is their whole mantra in life, you know. But manly valves used to be really good at this stuff.
Yeah, and on an LS, it's a bead lock style. So putting a new groove for a bead lock is really simple, and it's a single groove bead lock. So a lot of that's why they did that. So that way you can put the groove anywhere you like, and you can actually have those machined in. So
Well,
I'm
I
gonna.
think the neat thing is like as long as your valve stem height is in the correct place, you could actually move that groove down further and use a different spring altogether.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you just lost a bunch of weight using newer components with a smaller stem.
yeah. Also, too. So on those 8 mils too, they some of those will actually cut the thinner where it goes through the chamber right before the valve. So it's even thinner than the 8 millimeter where it goes down to the valve before
Oh,
it goes
really?
out. Yeah,
So if you really want to know like the ticket, if you're going to spend money on valves and do something cool like this, go over on eBay and type 8 millimeter Del West valve, and you can pull up 8 millimeters, but you can also put in 7 millimeter Del West valve, and you can find these things for like pennies,
yeah.
and
But the locks for those things are funky.
and they're
It's
expensive.
well, no. Here's the things that okay. So on an 8 millimeter valve, this is typically how it goes. So like in an LS valve, a keeper lock works the same way. The retainer goes in and it locks it, so that way the retainer and the lock themselves and they don't move right together.
Uh,
But on a 7 millimeter, it's totally the opposite. The lock will lock to the retainer, and then the valve will rotate inside the lock, right?
so it's
So
meant to like freely float.
it freely floats. So you have to have they're typically not for really high valve pressures because now instead of it being locked, there's a little bit of play in there. So if you get any type of valve float on them, they
Oh, they
can
can
break.
actually kind of loose. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they can break because it'll have a little stored energy in it. So they're a little funky in that. They're usually on the Mustangs, I think, is what the 7 millimeters are for. Like some of the modular engines have the 7 valve.
I just like to
Seven.
keep around the idea of what you can use that already exists and apply it to something old that no one ever even thought of. And
Yeah.
that's what I like to do. But I've been kicking this idea around for a couple of years, and I think we talked about the 7 and 8 millimeter valve thing, and you had told me like stay away from the 7 millimeters; they're not what you want.
Yeah.
But yeah,
When I was
but
at Crowder,
uh, the 8 millimeter is like a piece of cake. That's like what
yeah.
everything uses today.
Yeah, and that's the best way to go. The 7 millimeter, because when I was at Crowder, remember we were going to do that for your super stock, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. We have a lot of problems with those things. It's so thin and so small. Spring pressures become really even 8 millimeter. After a while, if you're running like say 700 pounds of over the nose and like say 250 on the seat, it's recommended that even every year check to see for stretch. You want to check stretch on that. Because it can happen.
There's not enough valve there. See, but I'm going from 3/8, which was the opposite of like
Right.
everyone made the valve bigger because they were more robust, right? But they take
Yeah,
up so much more room in the port, in the runner.
yeah. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I was kind of reading through, and I really don't see much. They were talking about slicks and whatnot, but unless you see a question here, I don't really see much in here. No, no, no. Oh, here we go. Ron's asking Shane, to your knowledge, besides Mopar, did any other manufacturers utilize a pinion snubber? Not to my knowledge. I don't think so.
AMC didn't AMC use them?
I don't know. I don't know that. Maybe they did.
I think AMC's did.
Yeah. The only way a pinion number would work on those old on any of the cars because of is where the axle is in the leaf spring because it's 25, 75 or whatever it is, and that's why it worked. Where I know Ford and Chevrolet were definitely almost in the dead center, and that's why they had so much wheel hop issues. But maybe AMC did. I don't know. I don't. I
Well, almost all AMCs were leaf spring like a Mopar, right?
yeah.
And
I
they borrowed so much stuff from Mopar. I would almost bet that they had pinion snubbers.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I have here? I totally forgot to tell you. I found it the other day. I've got a Turbo 400 case that's an AMC bolt pattern. So I have an AMC
Are
bolt
you
pattern
sure it's
turbo.
not nailhead?
I know it literally says AMC pattern right on it.
Oh,
It's
really?
yeah. So it's AMC pattern Turbo 400, and it was given to me. Hey, here's a Mopar with a 400. I'm like, that doesn't look like Mopar, but I'll take it. It's round, so it's AMC pattern. But
Mm,
yeah,
man, okay. So here's what I know, and
okay,
it may be AMC pattern. I don't know that far in depth. Okay, so Buick and AMC worked together quite a bit. They ended up buying the V6 Buick, the 225 odd fire V6, and they put it in their Jeepsters. Okay, well, the contract for that is they had to buy so many Buick engines and transmissions. Well, GM wasn't going to sell them a Chevrolet Bellhousing Turbo 400. What they did was they used their surplus of nailhead Turbo 400s and
oh,
sold them to AMC, then created an adapter to work from the Buick small block, which is the Dauntless 350. And they even, I don't think that the V6 ever got the Turbo 400, but if it did, it would have been the same way. But what they did was, and I think maybe they might have used the Turbo 400 because they had a flywheel on them that's like 2 inches thick. I have one.
wow.
And that was just for inertia, right? But okay, so they had an adapter that went from BOP to the nailhead pattern on the Turbo 400, and all that
Wow.
came from GM
Okay.
uh, and sold to AMC. Now, I don't know if later runs, because see, they only had, it was like late 67 when they made the deal to pick up the V6 Buick. That same year, they went the later Jeeps of 67, the Wagoneer and the Cherokee and the truck, the J2000s. They all used Buick 350 from like late 67 on when they did the contract for that 225, because Buick sold that 225 to AMC. But it came with the stipulations of using the Turbo 400 transmissions, the engines from Buick, the 350s. And that lasted until 72, I think. And then that went away. And then the AMC came out with their own V8. Now, after 72, I could see them still being bound by that contract, or up into 72, to where they would have had to have a solution when they came out with their AMC engines.
Yeah, I don't.
360.
After the podcast, I'll show you. I just
I think
found
it's
this
pretty
sitting right
cool.
there. It is
But
really cool.
I think it probably is a nailhead.
Okay. Okay. Could be. I don't know. So here's a question of the ages. Here we go. Aussie question. If you run without a thermostat, should you have a restrictor plate to slow the flow? I've heard yes and no. What's your take on this one? We've discussed this before.
This is a definite yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens is the water moves through the cooling system so fast it can't. Like old American terms, a radiator is the old terms is a heat exchanger, right? If you move the fluid through there so fast, it can't exchange heat because it's not sitting in there long enough to exchange the heat. Now it will exchange some. Don't get me wrong, it will distribute some, but if you slow it down through the cooler, it will exchange more heat. The thing is trying to find a finite balance of it. That's where the thermostat actually does a really good job of finding that balance because it's taking the water temperature. If you think about it, when the thermostat opens, the water through the cooling system, through the radiator, and all the way back down through and then up through the block, then comes back to that thermostat. And when it reaches a temperature below the set, it closes.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Or slows it down. Yeah.
right. And so that means everything within the engine is cold already, is cooled off to below the temperature of that thermostat.
Hmm.
When you run it wide open, let's say it's like you just take the thermostat completely out. And I've seen people do this, especially when you scratch your head just seeing it. And then when you see people do it on a carbureted car, you're like, or I mean, a fuel injected car, you're like, what in the world were you thinking? You obviously have no idea how this works because fuel injected car would stay in cold, like choke mode for,
The whole time.
oh
Yeah.
my God, it definitely, yeah. But it will eventually build up so much heat that the temperature would rise to the point where uh, it would actually come off choke mode. But if it was cold outside, God, it would never get hot.
Well,
But I my rule of thumb is we used to just cut the center
yes.
out and then just put the thermostat back in.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I was going to say, is that the the amount of flow was actually dictated by engineers for, even if that thermostat was wide open, it still has technically a restrictor, because that is the restrictor plate. So it's
Right.
designed for that amount of gallons per hour, going through the radiator. And thermodynamics will tell you this, that water, let's just say water, not coolant, but just water, it picks up and releases at the same rate. So if it's going through the radiator at X speed, it's going to pick up X amount of heat. But if you have a really efficient radiator, it's never going to get warm. The whole point of a restrictor at some point is to keep the thing up. Or if you have a crappy cooling system, it's going to overheat, just like what Dallas was saying. So what I do is, like in the Cookie Monster, I literally have a thermostat that I took apart and I left the plate, the actual part that was in there. Even though I have a water pump, it's an electric water pump, I have it on there because it was still designed to run X amount of fluid through the car, through the radiator at a certain rate. And that's what I do. So it really comes down to the age old question: do you have a good cooling system or a crappy one? If you got a good one, restrictor plate. If you got a crappy one, take the thing out and then let her eat, because that's the only way you're gonna exchange or keep moving fluid if it's crappy. So that's just my take on it.
My restriction generally now is just because the radiator or the when I had the T-Bird, the radiator was the passages were getting plugged up in the radiator, so then
Yeah,
they would just slow everything down that way.
yeah. So
I
Bob
need
was saying, oh
I need to rod that thing out, dude, or I put
yeah.
some CLR in it or something.
Yeah, on my car, I actually took the radiator out and I turned it and flushed it out, because it was getting little chunks, coming out.
The
And so
white
I,
chunks. Yeah.
yeah, the little chunks, and so I turned it upside down and just ran it through the other way, and then it basically blew all the crap that was in it. So that was actually good. And plus, my car, I got to do that every once in a while, anyways, because it's got concrete in it, and sometimes that concrete flakes off stuff, and it's just it's crap anyway. So
So
Bobby's
Bobby
saying that
says,
he,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, that 390 he ran in Southeast Gassers Superstock class had LS valves and springs in the FE heads,
Yeah.
and it really lightens up the valve train and makes them rev. This was the magic behind the 350 Superstock Buick I did, where Shane and I came up with valve train combination, and I think my valves they were not LS valves, they were a Chevrolet small block race valve,
Hmm.
but we used the LS style springs and retainers, and then it's a beehive valve spring setup. But we ended up pulling like, God, I'd have to go back and look at the video, but I think overall total was like 30 grams off of each rocker arm.
And that was up on the top too. So
Right.
that's actually the weight of the moving, the moment of inertia changed radically. And that's actually what I was just about to say, is that, yeah. So I remember them being 8 millimeter, but they weren't LS. I think they were 8 millimeter Chevrolets, and
I
you
think
got
they
them
were
from like,
Chevrolet race valves.
yeah,
Yeah.
eBay. You got them from eBay or something like that.
I may
Was
have. That's what I normally do is I try to find old NASCAR parts because if it's something that I want to try, nobody else has done, you don't want to
yeah,
spend a bunch of money doing it, right?
yeah,
Uh,
right.
so because it may not work.
Oh man, that's awesome. So here's actually, this is right up your alley. Perfect for you.
Okay, KS Skyhawk says, well, 455 head studs work on a 350 with an extra washer or two. How about any of the other Buick V8s available? $200 ish for studs. Better used on those valves. Okay, I've done this homework. The one I really want to try is the Ford trick. Okay, and what I mean by that, I'll explain it to you. The 302 Ford, the Windsor V8, the 302 Windsor uses half-inch head bolts, or no, 7/16 head bolts, just like the Buick small block, 7/16 head bolts. The 351 Windsor, same engine, pretty much same engine family, uses half-inch head bolts. I've actually considered the idea of trying to drill them and tap them to a larger head bolt size, and try to run a half-inch head bolt from, like, say, a 351 Windsor. I have noticed that the Windsor family is very similar to the small block Buick, because Chris Cox and I from Fab Race Mod and Repeat have talked about this endlessly, that we believe it was the same engineer that designed them, because they used to float around. It's not like, they just had an engine guy that was their engine guy on hire. A lot of these guys were contracted or subcontracted out through the automotive industry, and the manufacturers would give them like a parameter to work with, and these guys would design these engines. And I believe it was the same guy that designed the 215, that did the 302, well, did the 260 Windsor. And so a lot of similarities between the two. You can really see it in the LS architecture, because the LS is literally just a V8 version of the V6 Buick. So, which would have been a 300. I think I can drill those bolt holes out and use a half-inch head bolt. I will not use the 455 head bolts. I don't think they're going to fit, to be honest with you. I think what I really need to do is measure a bunch of stuff, but 455 could work. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, but been considering doing that. I don't know.
Yeah. So I actually just got a text here while you were talking, and people noticed this thing sitting here. So I'm just gonna. He wants to know what's going on with it. Okay, so I did run it on the dyno, and I got a video going to be coming out. And what I did is I literally did a beginning to end. There's going to be no editing on it. Literally, it's putting it on there, running it for the first time, filling it full of fluid. So that way you guys got to see exactly what I see. If it failed and blew up, it failed and blew up. If it finished, it's sitting here back on the stand. So you never know what happens. So watch the video, because people want to know, how did it run? And I'm not going to tell you. You got to watch the video. So that'll be this weekend. I'll drop that video.
Well, Ari is in here, and he's saying that his buddy has one of those nail head turbo 400 transmissions if you need one. I do not need one. I have no desire to have one. They were just, I would have to cut the case, the bell housing off. I don't use anything nail head, just because they were so odd, and they're just all in a world all by themselves.
Yeah. I got it because when I'm going to use it, I'm going to cut the bell housing off anyways. And I'm going to put, an SFI approved bell housing on it anyway.
So that's giving away my trick there. Okay. I'll explain something to everybody here. Turbo 400 was Buick designed that, and originally the first year it came out was called the Super Turbine 400. Okay. And you had it in, it was a switch pitch, but it also had
1 hour, 19 minutes.
So the switch pitch was an option. You could have a non-switch pitch version, and you had a switch pitch version. Okay. And any single Super Turbine 400 or Turbo 400 can be a switch pitch. It can be converted to one. Just like you just need the pump and all the accessories, and then you got to put a restrictor in one of the oil passages from where the pump bolts in. Now, what I was getting at was that Turbo 400, Chevrolet guys run around trying to find Turbo 400s, and the sad part is they'll pay $600, $700, $800 for a Chevrolet Turbo 400. When the reality is this: Turbo 400s came in Chevrolets, Buick, Olds, Pontiac, and Cadillac, right?
A lot more.
There was 4 times as many Turbo 400s made for Buick, Olds, Pontiac, and Cadillac than there was Chevrolets. But if you look at it from a money standpoint, you could literally buy one of those Buick, Olds, Pontiac, Cadillac, or Nailhead in this case for like pennies, $100, $120.
Not anymore. People have figured out this trick, but
have they? Okay. And then you would buy the bell housing, and then you would cut your bell housing off, adapt this bell housing from like JW Ultra Bell, and it bolts right on the pump. And here's the thing: when you put that bell housing on, it has a Buick, Olds, Pontiac, Cadillac, and Chevrolet bell housing. So it's a multi-bell bell housing. And then you can sell them things for freaking stupid money to Chevrolet guys.
Because everything, yeah.
Once they figure out where the switch pitch is in there, It may change the game too.
Right. I got this because, man, it was given to me, and it's just a shell. And if I do it, it's going to be one of those Sonax. Have you seen those new aluminum piece together? So it's the drum and all that stuff. It's all aluminum. It's one piece, super light.
Oh, I
So I'll
haven't
run
seen
one of those. Yeah, it's real. It takes almost like 20 pounds of mass out of the whole center section. So it's smaller in diameter. It's a clutch pack. So like basically it's your intermediate shaft and your output shaft goes in, your rear drum and all that. It's all one piece and it's all aluminum. I think it's 25 pounds it takes out. And that's not just weight.
Geez, a lot of
That,
rotating mass.
yes. And it's actually smaller. So people have actually picked up almost 3/10 in the quarter mile just by doing this. So
I wonder, you know what, that might almost be worth it. Like if you were to take Turbo 400, put those lightweight, because it wouldn't work with a big block car on nitrous. Let's face it, right? I
yeah,
mean, it would
right.
probably scatter that stuff. But if you were running like a small block car, now the Turbo 400 almost becomes an option because it's not gobbling up all that power,
Yeah.
right?
It's not,
And then
yeah.
you put a low first gear in the Turbo 400 with that lightweight Sonex rotating assembly, and now you have something that you might be able to get a small block car. And what I mean by small block car, like small cubic inch small block, 300 cubic inch or more or less. And then you use a Turbo 400, which is like would last forever.
Here's the quote number 2 of the night. John Wilburn won the first one. This is number 2. Paul says the night ain't complete until we get a switch pitch lesson. There we go. Big round of applause.
Cram some switch pitch right in your ear hole.
All right. Here's actually really something that's really funny is that Vintage Adventure Drive saying that I pulled the 400 down on my Scamp. I measured the pistons. Their stock 114 down in the hole. The engine had 7.7 to 1 compression. Man, I'm telling you, I've had that. I've had that on the Slant 6. The very first Slant 6 I ever had a blown head gasket on it. So, but it had the steel shim. I didn't know anything about Slant 6s. I took it off. The steel shim is like, what, 15 thousandths, maybe 10 or 20, I don't know. But I put a regular Victor Renz or, Felpro gasket on it, which is like 39 thousandths. I put it on there. The car was an absolute pig, and I didn't know why. Then when I took it back apart, I think I measured the compression. It was right at almost 7.1 to 1 compression. Think about that.
Surprised it even ran.
It ran beautiful. It just had no power.
Yeah,
like no power.
Well, what's funny is those the Malaise cars from that era, from like 1973 to like 1980, 81, they get such a bad rap for being turds. And really what it was the mandate for unleaded fuel, and the manufacturers didn't know how to react to it. The easiest thing to do was just drop the static compression ratio on them.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing they did. But God, some of those engines were engineering marvels. And the sad part is they ran like dog shit because 7 to 1 compression, right? I mean, let's face it, a 400 is actually just a big brother to a 383, which likes to rev, and that 400 does the same because it's got a better bore to stroke ratio.
That's right.
The 400 Ford, same thing. Everyone calls them a 400 modified. It's technically a 400 Cleveland, right? The Cleveland in the United States got the worst gig in the ass out of all of them because it was brand new R&D that came out with the 302 Boss 302, and it was headed to market with the 351 Cleveland in the United States with the big 4-barrel heads and all that stuff. And they got 1 year where it got decent compression, and after that it dropped to 7.9 to 1. Well, they don't run worth a crap. But what was neat is in Australia, those guys got many years of good compression in a Cleveland. And that's what the Cleveland needed. Anything with canted valves or hemispherical heads, you got to have compression. That is the most important thing out of those engines. But yeah, 400 Cleveland. I still think I want to do a 403 Olds. I don't care if it's got windowed mains or not. I want to do a 403 Olds because I think it is the same kind of thing going on. It's just everyone laughs at them because there's 7 to 1 compression, but it is a small block Oldsmobile. It's a short deck. Oldsmobile only has 2 deck heights, right? That's the only difference between the engines. It's 2 different deck heights. Mm-hmm. The small block has smaller main, right? But they all have the same crank. Every single one of them has the same stroke, the same main journal size for the small block family. The neat thing is the 330 Oldsmobile with like 11 to 1 compression. I think it was 11 and a quarter, ultra high compression from like 1964 to 1967 330. It has a steel crank and it'll fit in the 403. And then the 403 has a 4.125-inch bore, which is dang near a 455 Buick bore. But it's got a really short stroke. I mean, it'd be a contender up there. And I think what would be really neat, Sheen, is if we could do like a series where you get a 400 Mopar, a 400 Cleveland Ford, and a 403 Oldsmobile and just bash them out.
I was just going to say that because here's Mr. Wilburn saying the 400 is my favorite big block. It would be awesome muscle car air. Look, I've said this 100 times. That was my favorite engine I ever made was the 400 because I could RPM it to death. If I could ever build another big block Mopar, it would be a 400. And here's how I would do it. I would keep the stock stroke. I would lengthen the rod. I would cut down on some of that bob weight on the piston. I would raise that pin up there. I'd put like the longest rod I could in there. Obviously, you're going to gain some weight from the rod, but this way I can cut down. I can move that pin up higher, and I would RPM the absolute living piss out of it, and I would just see what it could do. I really would, and that would be great because I've never built one. I've done a 408 small block Mopar. And that was in the Cookie Monster before. But could I do the same power with a stock style 400, right? Could I make that same type of power? Could I run, nines, with a 4 in the Cookie Monster? Now, I was doing that with a bunch of nitrous, but I never had the chance to buy good heads. And, I work for a company now where I can get really good heads, right? So I would really like to do that one time. It's just build one just to build it again, stock stroke, a 383 crank, forged crank, and maybe even do some trick shit stuff. I would make that 2-inch journals, so I'd cut down the rod journal. I'd make it a really small pin. I would make it a really lightweight rod, really lightweight piston, because you're going to be dealing with just RPM then at that point. That would be fun for me. I'd really like to do that. I think that could also be a class for 26. The 400.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Let's see how many people we get for Triple Crown, right? But
yeah,
I wouldn't mind doing. Maybe we should talk to Andy Wood and we could do the 400 Comparo or the 400 Shootout, and then just dump some money in 3 engines that were considered smog malaise era garbage, and see what they really do in comparison to each other. With, like, let's say, well, if you think about what's neat about it is, I'm sure that 400 Cleveland, if you had all things considered to be the same, would stomp mud holes in everybody. But the hits is just, God, it was the magic small block. It's a big block Chevrolet in a small block form. That's really what it is. But I don't know, man. I think if you were to do things, all things considered the same, and you had the same camshaft in them, the same kind of cylinder head, the same intake manifold setup, I wonder which one. I wonder if they all would be contenders.
An engine doesn't know what it is. It's right. Literally cubic inches to pumping. If the air is about the same, now the Cleveland head would obviously outflow them. But if all things being the same, they would all end up being about the same. If they had about the same camshaft, because they don't care what they are at that point. The valve angles and all that stuff, shrouding. That all comes into play at higher RPMs, but when it comes down to lower ones, they just don't care. It really just comes down to your preference at that point. But if you could get a 400, like, that would be something to talk to Andy about, because I would like to do one. I mean, I haven't done a big block since the 90s. Well, actually, it was early 2000s, but I haven't done one in a long time just because I never really needed for. But it would be fun. It would be fun.
Man, that's something to talk to Andy about for real. Like, because you know what? I just started thinking, like, there's a 400 cubic inch for like almost every manufacturer.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because the mid-sized cars were all limited to 400 cubic inch. So that number is pretty much across the board, 400 cubic inch. Everybody has one. How cool would it be just to have a 400 cubic inch shootout like deal? And I mean, because the one I've always been kind of, all right, I took the 455 out of my Suburban 2 years ago and I put a 400 Buick in it that I couldn't give away. Nobody wanted it, right? So I just put in the Suburban and sold the 455 out of it. And the interesting thing about that 400 Buick is it is not like the Buick 455 at all. The 455 has face distorting, brutal, like caveman torque at 1 RPM, kind of like a Tesla, right? Now, the 400 is not like that. You've lost 55 cubic inches, but what happened is I think it uses the same head, the same crank, the same rods, all of it's same except for the block has a smaller bore. It was all done with bore. Well, it's the Achilles heel of the 455 is the blocks are flimsy, and the bigger the bore, the flimsier it gets, and it starts to flex, and it pinches the mains, and it starves the rods for oil. Generally, number 7 rod, right? Well, the 400 has, I did the math, it's got literally 2 more inches of cast iron in the block.
Wow.
Meaning it's more rigid. And so I started thinking, man, I bet this 400, I could probably fill it with hard block and spin the wee out of that thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because the reason why it doesn't make the same torque as the 455 is because it's not meeting peak velocity in the cylinder head at 1 RPM, right? It's doing it at, like, say, I say 1 RPM as a joke. The 455 generally meets peak torque at 2,800 RPM. And somewhere around, I guess that's probably a good number to go with.
That 25,
that 400 does it at 3,200 RPM. It's doing the same thing. It's just smaller cubic inches, so it's got to move more air, right? But when it does that, it opens up the door for quite a bit of the engineering architecture can be changed in favor of RPM because the 455 has never been in favor of RPM. So you could really, what's neat about it, it's got the same bore as a 340 Mopar, right? That 400 Buick has a 4030 bore. So I could put 340 Mopar pistons in it, and I can use a big block Buick rod, which has almost the same exact size wrist pin as the Mopar, right? And I can rev the crap out of that thing, come up with 12-to-1 compression and rev the crap out of it with a good set of aftermarket race pistons.
When I had my 400 in the Cookie Monster there, and I remember I told you I put nitrous on it, and that's what was my first engine with nitrous. I didn't know how to tune, but this goes into I was still learning at that point. It reminds me that's what Dylan Levi reminds me of me at that age, because I was just learning. There was no books. I was basically blowing things up and learning it. But here's the testament to that. I didn't know about retarding timing. It told me the instruction said retard some timing, this and that. I remember retarding some, but I didn't retard the correct amount. I never checked anything. I ran that thing for almost a solid year on a 250 shot of nitrous on that big shot kit, not really doing much. And that thing survived. I didn't change heat range on plugs. I didn't do any of that stuff.
Everything wrong.
I did everything wrong, and it survived. When it finally blew up, I think it was, I think I spun a bearing. It actually didn't blow up. I spun a bearing in it, and but it spun it so hard that it cooked the block, and I couldn't reuse it. And then finding a block was hard, so that's why I went to the small blocks. When I went to the small blocks, it showed me how strong the big blocks actually were, because I blew up small blocks left and right, but they were easier to get for $79. I could get them; they were cheaper, and they're easier to get. So I just stayed with them, and I finally figured it out. But if I had a little bit more know-how, or at the time, I probably would have stuck with the big blocks. But that 400, it's got a shorter deck. I mean, everything about it is just better, and it was indestructible.
It would almost be worth it to talk to Andy, see if we can get a 400 cubic inch dyno shootout and then the following year just do, if Triple Crown doesn't go well, you just do 400 cubic inch shootout the following year.
Yeah. I think the Triple Crown, if people get motivated on it, it's going to be a fun racing heads up class if people do it, because the numbers work for all engines, for all cars, and it would be really fun. So that way people can just bring out their junk that they already have running and race it,
right?
And be competitive.
Well, you think about it, it fits just about anything from like 1960 to like 1990. Every manufacturer has something that would fall in that 300 cubic inch range in that time frame, which is almost anything that hot rodders covet to these days. I don't know. I really like the idea of doing that. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I'd really like to take some time to put a lot of effort into making that Triple Crown go, because I think it would go.
Yeah.
I think it would be awesome if we kind of just if it wasn't just a thing at No Name Nationals, it was just something that you did. It took it on a traveling circuit. I think that would be neat.
Yeah, I think the Triple Crown really needs 3 races. If we get some really good cars in this, we might think about 2 other races or another race or something other than that. So that way they'll have something to race in. But as far as for me, here's the thing, though. If we're going to do a 400 shootout, I've got this car behind me to finish, and then I've got another one on the rack before I even think about building another engine. Because
Oh yeah, dude. I'm just kicking an idea around because
yeah,
it just dawned on me that almost every manufacturer has a 400. But when you look at the Mopar, the Ford, God, man, the numbers were so abysmal, and they had such a bad rap, and it literally had nothing to do with the architecture of the engine.
call it the Smog Dog class.
Small Dog 400.
Smog Dog 400 class.
Yeah, I think I'd be kind of surprised. There was a 403 Oldsmobile that won Pro Stock in the early 80s or late 70s.
Wow. Okay.
Because those Oldsmobile diesels, the
oh yes, that's right.
diesels,
They use the rods and stuff. Yeah.
well, you can use the whole block.
Yeah.
Right, and it's that gray iron, cast iron diesel stuff. So, and it would handle the same bore as the 403. So it didn't have the windowed mains. So there was rumors that you could go get one of those 350 Oldsmobile diesel blocks, convert it back to gas. But there's also rumors that there's 403s out there that don't have the windowed mains. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. That'd be something that's worth a video just to do by itself.
Yeah.
They literally at the top of the main has big or like square windows
for air to pass between them. Yeah.
And it's like, guys, talk about making it weak. But if you think about it, none of the strength it needs to be there at all because it's never abused right there. It's always on the bottom.
Yeah, the only strength that would be is for torsional loads this way between the two, but that would just basically be even the Gen 3 Hemi, like the 392 Hemi, the one that I've got that makes, that can handle 1,700 horsepower. It's got windows on all of them, all the way across, and that's just for transferring air, controlling windage. So that way the air's not going through by the crank and then coming back up. It's traveling underneath the piston and not by the crankshaft. That's what it's really for. So cut down on the windage on that.
It might be worth it. I don't know if you've ever seen an Oldsmobile big block cylinder head. Have you?
What's that?
Have you ever seen an Oldsmobile big block cylinder head?
When I was at Crowder. Yeah, they're massive. When I was at Crowder.
Huge ports, man.
Yeah. They had pro stock Oldsmobile heads there at Crowder, and I was actually like surprised. I was like, Oldsmobile, and then he was like, and then Don Flanagan, who was kind of my mentor there at that time, he was like, yeah, take a look at those ports, and I was like, holy crap! And he goes, yeah, that was like the key back in the 80s and 90s for pro stock, and yeah, it was actually really cool looking.
Yeah. Well, so Levi's Backyard Performance is saying you need to give Triple Crown a second year shot. We will, man. I mean. Look, you're going to have a drag race if you get 2 cars to show up. What's the car count? I don't know. I know 38 POS is building a car. I know James and James Show was supposed to be building one.
Big Block 402.
I haven't. Yeah, Big Block 402 is supposed to be building one. Vintage Adventure Drives is planning on being there, and he's already got his running and driving.
That's 4 right there.
Yeah, and when I first started doing the AHRA, I talked to Quayne Stott a lot. Quayne he actually just called me out of the blue when I don't know if you know him, but he was the guy that ran Southeast Gassers Association.
He's the one that started. It started with 2 people.
Right. And he told me that's exactly what he said. It started one weekend when they had just a shootout, just a match race between 2 cars that fit that class. And everybody wanted to do it after that. And I'm like, you know what? That's all you really need. That's how a drag race starts, and if we get 4, guess what? We got 2 pairs. And so you're going to have 2 rounds of best out of 3. I don't know, but I think if we give it some time to grow, I think it will. We just got to get the fire lit and then keep blowing on it, applying a little bit of air.
Yeah. Here, Bobby's saying that if he can source a few parts, I can bring his new car for a Triple Crown. That's if I can find parts. Dude, I'm telling you, I will help you because I think that would be awesome to have a real.
And we were talking about this when Andrew Nelson was talking about it. Was asking about it. He had an old gasser that was a Studebaker, and the rules specifically said, "Hey, you got to have same engine and the manufacturer of the car." But we did limit that to saying, okay, an old school gasser, you're allowed to bring, as long as it meets the rules because they're like orphaned. Like if you think about the Studebaker, they're orphaned, they're abandoned. It'd be like having what is it, like a Oakland, Pontiac and Oakland. Well, they're orphaned as well, and literally it should fall under just whatever combination it has in it. You just like, okay, well then this is the rules that it has to meet. If it's an old gasser, because a lot of those cars were like Henry J's. There's no Henry J combination you could run in that. You'd have to have something else, Chevrolet power plant or whatever. So I think that would be kind of cool. I don't want to turn it into a gasser class, and I don't want it to have the gloves come off, but we do got to start somewhere. And, Andrew Nelson was asking about it, and I told him, just bring the car, and we'll let you run. And this is the same thing for Bobby Frizzell. That thing's a 1947 Ford.
Did we come up with, if it's older than, like, say, 65, wasn't that the number? If it was older than 65, it can have a different engine in it or something, or 66. I think we came up with something.
I think it had to have a straight axle is what we came up with.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There was, we'll talk about it later, but I think before we hammer it down, but it was because 66 or 65, if it was older than that, there was some cars that, like he was just saying, like a Henry J. If you got that body, you can put something in it. And then it would have to be kind of a gasser style or whatever, but it's still got to meet all the weight rules and still have all that other stuff. So, but we'll talk more about that.
Yeah. And then Dust Devil Garage is saying he's running the Triple Crown. So that's 5.
Okay.
That's 5 right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we play this smart, we could do, first round regular eliminations and then best out of 3 for the last 2 guys standing.
Yeah. We can do double eliminations or something. We'll figure it out.
Or Chicago style shootout where everybody qualifies and then it's 1 versus 16 or whatever,
We'll pull a running order. We'll either invert it or whatever. 1 and 2 race each other or whatever. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll have fun with it. And this year, remember, it's just the first year. You're not going to have 32 car field. No one even has seen a car go down the track yet in this class. But I think it is. I think it's a really affordable class for the regular person to go heads up racing.
Yeah, because you've already got the cars. I saw, and the reason why I was telling Dallas this is that just a bike ride through the pits, half the cars there would actually qualify for this for most part.
And like literally, you could show up with a 1989 305 Camaro and run this class. That was the intent. That was the idea behind it. What we actually envisioned was any generation Camaro, right, would fit in this class as long as it didn't have a big block. Any generation Mopar A body would fit in this class as long as it didn't have a big block.
Right.
A Mustang, any generation would pretty much slide in this class as long as it didn't have a big block.
And be competitive. All 3 of those.
That was the idea behind it, is that every manufacturer, and we went as far as we were kicking around stuff like I was telling you, Oldsmobile made a 330 cubic inch engine. All you need is an Oldsmobile Starfire or a Jetfire or F85 with a 330 olds in it, and you're golden. Mm-hmm. It's going to fit right in the class. But it's the same thing. Pontiac 326, right? There's a reason why we chose the 333 cubic inch. Mm-hmm. And that's because every manufacturer made something within that range where you could bore it 30 over and be in that class anywhere.
Yeah, 318, same thing. You're right in that range. Dust Devil's asking tech question. Will Caltrax work with my Superstock Springs and pinions number? Not the pinions number. You don't need that anymore because the Caltrax will take care of that. It will work with your Superstock Springs, but not very well because Superstock Springs have a big stack on the passenger side and then a smaller stack on the driver's side. Typically, they like split monoleafs because they want movement so that way they can load up and go because, it's a basically almost kind of like a slapper bar looking thing, but it's loading your springs on the front end by the eyelid. So will it work? Yes. With your Superstock Springs, will it work great? Probably not.
I would actually I would go out here and say, will it fit with your Superstock Springs? Yes. No. Will it work? I think the architecture between the two things are they counting each other out. I think you would never get that combination sorted out because Calvert that makes Caltrax were intended for Superstock racing, which was a monoleaf or a fiberglass leaf spring.
Yeah,
that's it. They're meant to work. Also, they're not meant to work with a spring that's preloaded.
Yeah.
right?
And
They load the spring. That's how
and
it
that's
works.
and that's why it won't work on the super stock springs, is because it work well is because one stacks this tall, one stacks this tall. So you're going to have the arm links are going to be going at different angles. So it's going to load the springs differently. So to put your super stock springs on, you're literally going to have to take out all those stacks that are on the passenger side. There's like, I think there's 6, and 4 of them are just cut that go forward only. You're gonna have to take those off so they're the same thickness, so that way the angle of the rods going forward would be the same. And then as you go down the track too, the car's going to want to pull right or left, and that's how you actually set preload on that side to get the car going straight. So
So Junkyard D saying that I'm trying to get mine back together for Triple Crown. So that makes 6. That's
yeah,
total 6 cars right there.
that
It's
we met
3.
our goal. We said 6. Remember, we said if we get
That was
6, we
that was
was
the what we were shooting for the first year was 6
yeah,
cars.
that's right.
If 6 show up, we will have met our goal, and that's that, right? But I'm just more than happy to have welcome everybody on board with this thing. I want to see it go because I think it's a very I don't know what right now class racing. If you haven't noticed, class racing has become an unobtainium level sport for anybody that is a regular person.
Agreed.
Right. That's
Look
why
at 2010-50 class. Look at the 2010-50 class.
Yeah. Well, Dylan Levi complains about it all the time. Right. It originally was the regular guy class. Now you can't even compete in there unless you got like $500,000 car.
Yep.
And it'll just get worse. It'll continue to get worse. It jumps to shark from the beginning. But when Shane and I sat down and we wrote these rules, it doesn't allow much for growth, right? Because you're not running power adders. You're not running something bigger than 370 cubic inch.
368.
368 is the maximum number, right? It's going to limit everybody's possibilities. Now, I did see that Steve Morris just built some 355 cubic inch small block Chevrolet that made 755 horse. But
different angle in the valve, though. That was a different angle in the valve.
Oh, was it?
Was
okay. Well, I didn't know that because I haven't watched the video yet. But remember, we also limited the slick. So you still got to get down on that little slick. Even if you pull up next to Steve Morris, he's got to get it done on that little 28-inch slick.
Yeah.
And so it was meant for the regular guy, regular gal.
And read the rules carefully because there's no trick valve things on this. That's where the Chevrolets and the get the advantage, because they have 23-degree valve, but then all these aftermarkets get them into like the 15, 16-degree valve angles. So it's a stock valve angle. That's what makes it awesome. So 18, 20, and 23. So you gotta sit with the stock, but that's why it keeps all the trick stuff out of it, and it basically comes into a thinking man's game at that point, and having some fun,
Yeah, remember, first and foremost, it's all about having fun.
Yeah.
Right, and being affordable. Don't knock the affordability out of it. So Junkyard D saying Big Block 402 will not be in the Triple Crown.
Okay, so he's not going to make it then.
It's probably had something come up, and he's not going to be able to finish that car. And I haven't heard from the James and James show. I haven't
seen him in here for.
Well, and it may be because we moved over to your channel, so we had StreamYard. But I don't know. I don't really know. I do know this. If you're running a Chevrolet, I have a 302 cubic inch Chevrolet, and it would fit in this class, and it has a quadrijet on it, and it makes 360 horsepower. FYI,
right.
If you've got a Vega, I might be your guy.
And that would be a decent runner in a 3,000 pound car, under 3,000 pound car.
Would.
Yeah.
I think a Vega with a stick shift and that engine would just be fun to the 10th power, man.
On a 26 tire, oh yeah, you'd be competitive.
Yeah. Oh, it would get down, that's for sure.
Here's one. Anyone could build a Triple Crown car for sub $3,000 if you already had the car, because nowadays these cars are expensive, but there's no such thing as a $500 muscle car anymore. But if you've already got it, you could pretty much rebuild the engine and get some decent converter. And yeah, I would say because if you go to Engine Power, they rebuilt a few of these engines for like under 3,000, and they made like 450 horsepower. A 450 horse to 500 horse, you're a contender to win if you had something in that power range, for real. I'm just saying, but that's on a heavy car. So if you have a lighter car, I would say somewhere between like 400. You're close to
Yeah,
400 horse on a really light
I
car.
think you could actually dip down into the high 300 horsepower number, and you're
If
gonna
you're 2,700 pounds, yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
think you can get down to like 370 horse, 380 horse, depending on like how much torque the engine makes, because
yeah,
that's one thing that's going to be misleading to a lot of people, right? 370 horse, that engine, if it made 370 horse and 280 foot-pounds of torque, it's going to be a turd no matter what,
yeah.
right?
But
But if it made 370 horse and 385, 390 foot-pounds of torque, you're going to get it done.
you're going to get it done. Yeah. And then it's going to be, and it's not just about the engine too. It's about matching the gears correctly to your engine combination and the weight of the vehicle. This is where the math comes into the fun part of it. It's like, it's a whole build. It's not just, I'm going to put this badass engine in here. Well, you're going to suck because if you got a lot of horsepower, not a lot of torque, you got to gear it right for that. If you got a lot of torque, not so much horsepower, you got to gear it right for that. And that's the fun part about it. That's what I'm interested to see. Right here it says, I have less than 3,000 into my Triple Crown car, with it being nearly daily driven. That is awesome, dude. And that was the whole point of this. Is
Yes,
that
that was 100% the whole point.
yeah? That was literally. I was thinking about. I always forget those guys. The Dirty Hippie. What's their channel called?
Bad Tree
Bad
Productions.
Tree. Yeah. Dirty Hippie. He's got that 4-door with the tunnel ram, small block. I mean, that's a perfect car for this tunnel ram on a small block. That car would fit right in here. Half those cars on that whole row would fit in there.
Dizzy's asking me what it would take to buy that mill, Dallas. I don't really want to sell it to anybody, just because I'll be honest with you, I got quite a bit of money in it because I got a dyno time on it, which is it started me off at $800 right there by itself. So I got about, I guess, $4,300, $4,500 in it. And that's because I had to buy everything. I didn't own a Chevrolet part. But I put it together because it was something that was just a labor of love. It's something I wanted to do when I found out that 3-inch stroke crank was available. But you could easily duplicate it if you had what I really needed. I had the perfect setup until my newly ex-wife homelessed me. I had a Vortec 350 out of a Escalade, which gave me everything I needed minus the crankshaft. And then I ended up having to scrap that. So I had to start all over. I had to get another block. I had to get a set of heads, and it made it pretty expensive.
So Brian actually saying, what about something like a Dodge Dakota with a Magnum 360? Forget that. Go get a Jeep Cherokee. We in Dallas have said this. Now I'm going to let the hat out. I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag here. It's 40 something days. Go get a unibody.
XJ Cherokee.
That's right. Cherokee. And they're unibody, light as hell. 2-wheel drive. It's got a straight axle on the front, and
Straight axle hung by a spring in the front.
Yes, and it doesn't weigh anything. Drop that thing down. You can put a 360 in one of those cars, and you can go 30 over. That makes it 368 cubic inches. That means that you can put the weight where it matters. Put it in the back.
Well, it's technically a station wagon. It's got those big windows in the back, which is a perfect place for them.
Yes,
okay?
Exactly.
And then the other thing is that thing will accept and swallow up an 8.8 Ford without even breaking a sweat.
That's right.
So you can go get it right in. Yes.
It just bolts right in.
Yeah.
And
so
everything
that would be the ticket.
Is there. In fact, me and Dallas have talked about this. Is like, dude, we are each talking about this, and he was like, dude, a Jeep Cherokee. And I was like, yeah, unibody Jeep Cherokee, subframe connectors, cage, and then set the engine back. I mean, just do all the fun stuff to it, and it's perfect for that. So that's what I'm telling is that. Oh, I didn't know that the Hippie was a 408, but I didn't know that the Hippies.
Well, we've talked about this with this XJ Cherokee like many times because it's one of those things that's overlooked at the unibody truck, but they're only like 3,000 pounds.
Less than that, man. They're light as hell.
And the windows are flat. So you can
flat.
literally Lexan every window in it.
By just going down to Home Depot, and that's what hot riding's all about. You can just do it, hit it with a torch, put it in there, and you're done. And it's light.
Oh my God, that would be so much fun. I would love to show up with a Triple Crown. Everybody's got their race car, and you show up with like a Jeep Cherokee.
Yeah.
And the way I would do it was like those things got a 5-on-4.5 bolt pattern, like a regular Mopar small pattern, right? And the Ford Lincoln well, I guess it's the Lincoln Mark 8. Okay, this is another tip that nobody knows. The Lincoln Mark 8 has an aluminum spare wheel,
Yeah.
right? And it is 15 by 4. And it's forged aluminum, and it has a 5 on 4.5 bolt pattern. And you can literally bolt that on the front. It costs you $40 from the junkyard as a spare wheel, right? You can put some racing tires on it because it's the exact same size. And in the rear, you get something that, like, remember, it's a Jeep. So, like, there's a million freaking offset wheels to put like a 10-inch wide swamper on a Jeep, right? So, I mean, the world is your oyster with that thing. You could really have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. So 38 Racing saying, Shane, you can't set back the engine Triple Crown because of stock firewall. Look, my Cookie Monster has got a stock firewall location, and it's set back 2 inches and down 1 inch. Stock firewall position. Remember, think outside the rules. You can set it all the way back, and if you look, what did those engines come in? They came in Jeeps. What's a Jeep? It's an inline. Have you ever looked at a firewall on one of those Jeeps? They're set like this, so that distributor will go way back inside there.
Or so, you can just be awesome and get yourself a Buick. It has a distributor in the front. Don't even worry about it.
Right. So you stock firewall location, you're exactly right, but you can still move things back and do whatever. So can you believe it's almost been 2 hours?
No, it's gone by pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, I'm already. We got 4 minutes to go, and I've already got flashing. So, is there anything that you got going on? Any videos you're going to post? What you want to talk about? Or
well, I used to say stuff all the time like that, but I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. I'm just trying to do. Okay, well, we got 3 minutes left. Okay, yep. I'm newly married, so that's now in the rear view. Finally,
so now you can move forward in life.
Yes, I can move forward in life. That just happened today at 10 o'clock. So, I don't know. Things, now that I have my footing, I'm figuring things out, I can probably start doing something here soon. I don't know. I'm right now, I got a lot of stuff on my plate. I have a sickness I'm dealing with, and I have this divorce I'm dealing with. So right now, I think I'm going to focus on getting those things out of the way, and then I'm going to hammer down on some stuff. I have been playing with my 63 Buick, but I don't plan on starting videos on it until the fall, so I can work on it every day. And I'm going to put a video up every day. I'm going to try. And that's all I'm going to do with the 63 Buick. I need to finish it. There's been a lot of people saying that was one of the coolest builds on YouTube, and I need to get back on that. And I need to get back on that. You know, I want to finish it. I want to have it at the Buick Nationals in May of 26. So, done or not, it's going to be there.
Yeah. I'm going to be real quick with this. So I have video dropping on this engine, the 4FR that's going in there. It's a CRT and TCI, John Wilburn, and Slant Daily Garage combination to make one transmission work. So yeah, it's the 4FR transmission. I'll have that video, and it'll be unedited of it going on the dyno. So there'll be from beginning to end. So it's just like starting up an engine. You'll see that. Don't forget to go see John Wilburn on Friday on his channel at 7 p.m. Central. And don't forget to go see Kim and Buff on Tuesday nights. Plus, they always go live late at night. Go talk to her about the Slant 6 or the 6-cylinder series that she's got going on. What's up?
Hey, dude. One thing before we're out of here. You said 4FR, remind me of something. They found the Oak Island treasure.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes, them same brothers did. The guys from Discovery just announced today that they found the Oak Island treasure.
What is it?
It's a legit treasure.
No way. No way.
Yes.
Because
Yes,
I've been watching that thing, and I gave up on it because I used to give an update on it. Guess what? They found nothing. So
yeah, now they found it. Legitimately, they found it.
No way. I'm gonna have to look into that. That now you intrigued me again. I'm gonna have to go watch that because I've got them all recorded there. I haven't watched any of them. I've lost interest in it.
All right. Well, that'll put a smile on your face.
All right.
So
well, cool.
Till next week, we're out of here. See you cats on the flip side.
You guys take it easy. Have a good week.